Peace. Welcome to the Real HD show. It's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you, but we're back. We're here. We're better than ever. Um, Make sure before we get started, like you always do, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on all your notifications. Make sure to comment so that every time we have a Real HD show, you too can jump on live with us and have a higher discussion. Because you might have a lot of, innuendos and crazy conversations with your people at the water cooler or at subways or wherever you get your, however you transit throughout your day. But we're gonna have a serious higher discussion here tonight. We have some interesting, really pivotal things to talk about. We even got Sister Aurora already in the background, ready to go, and she come with that fire, so don't play with her. She ready to rock. And you know, we're expecting some folks on, and we want you to also participate with us in this higher discussion this evening. We're about to be a whole duohedron. That means something divine. We're working towards something divine here this evening. I don't know if you hear me, church, but we want you to come along, say your song, so we can tell right from wrong right here on the Real HD show. Please make sure you share the link. And if you have someone that you think could benefit from being on the show, please jump in like Sister Aurora did and come on backstage with us. You too could rock out with us down here with these call letters down here, StreamYard.com uh, / 8P5Y7GFMDV. Please go down and check those out. Hey, peace. Peace, Mega. Come on, man. We supposed to have a fire discussion tonight, bro. I appreciate you tapping in. Um, I was gonna put your joint up about the joint you had up about fashion. That was fascinating. I was digging that. I wanted to get your permission first, though, bro. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, blessings to you and appreciate you tapping in. And make sure you tell everybody who is anybody that you think would benefit from a show like this, about the knowledge, wisdom, and liberation that we spreading around these parts, yeah. And we trying to do it. We trying to make it happen for you this evening. Before we get started, and like always, we want to thank our sponsors, TPE, waters, powders, zips, gels, everything to put a battery in your back because some of us have a second half to our day. Then we want to talk about redeemed vacations. You bring 5 people, that's right, 5 people, courtesy of yourself, to the Real HD show or any of our Real HD show programs, and you will get a 4 day, 3 night vacation somewhere in the United States, that you of your choosing, that you can go on with your family and do your thing. Yeah, man. And also make sure that you also are checking out our local folks, our good local people in the Rock, New York. Um, Make sure you are procuring their wares. Make sure that you are buying from them. Make sure that dollar is circulating in these, melanin communities more than just the taxation on your check. Make sure it's folding 5 and 6 and 10 times if you can. Be healthy, fresh food markets, wrapped smoothies, teas, all that good stuff. Go see Imhotep and Negus for that. Um, Make sure you support Bats Footwear. Make sure you support uh, Black House. They having a sip and I believe sip and shop experience there for your art and cultural needs. Make sure this Saturday you are checking out the Overcoming Book Club series. It's almost over. Uh Wifey is out there doing her thing where life be lifing through literature. That's her get down. And she's had a really good run, a good successful series so far. Okay, cool. No problem, bro. See you on Monday, man. All right. So, yeah, and then also so check that one out. A lot of shadow work, a lot of iron sharpening iron in that one. A lot of life lessons in that one. It's both spiritual, refreshing, down to earth, brand new. Let's get it. The Overcoming Book Club discussion series, and it's going to be a lot of more discussions on books and how life is lifing through literature through books. My wife is hosting it, so y'all make sure y'all patronize, show your love for that. Make sure you show your love for In the Bonus. That's right, In the Bonus Hoop Show for hoop heads. So if you're a serious NBA fan, basketball fan, hoop fan of any sort, make sure you check out In the Bonus Hoop Show for hoop heads Sunday at 7 p.m. So every week the Real HD Show broadcast network hits you with a lot of info, a lot of shows, and we are growing, growing, growing. Peace to Sister Aurora. What's happening with you?
Hey, how are you tonight?
How are you? Yeah, what's happening? Sorry about Monday. Technical difficulties, modems and routers, they don't make them like they used to. So,
wait a minute, you still have a modem?
yeah, they maybe they're two separate ones. They sometimes they combine it, and sometimes they like, nah, take two of these. And I'm like, why I need two? Like, stop playing. So, yeah, we had to get it all serviced, and we're back and we're back. We're up and running. We're doing it like we're supposed to on the Real HD Show. Yeah, glad you could tap in and come on and rock out with us this evening. So like we always do it, we're gonna start with while we wait for everybody else to jump in, we're gonna start with our elders and ancestors blueprint because we're standing on the shoulders of greatness, and sometimes we try to reinvent the wheel, but we don't have to if we just go a little far back, look at what our folks did, and try to revitalize it for now. So let's get into that. Elders and ancestors. Here we go. Real HD Show.
What makes them mad about it is that they had black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire fists. We think you fight fire with water fists. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions where all of us people are getting together and have an international proletarian revolution. Right on. Right on. And that's saying all power to the people. Right on. That's saying that no matter what color you are, there's only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back because this is lower, this is upper. This is the oppressed, this is the oppressor. This is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fight amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here. You got pigs of all colors, you know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy, and that everybody else that's black and that wears a lot of hair on his head and hair on his face, they want to keep you thinking that he's your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start to dealing with a little logic, then there would be no one else you could attack other than Hanrahan, other than Davy, and other than Tricky Dicky Nixon. If you make the right decision, then the oppressed people of the world get complete.
All right, that was the chairman, Fred Hampton, serving it up like only he can deliver it. Sister Aurora, talk to us. Tell us whether or not you think that message that Fred Hampton gave so many decades ago, Does that still apply based on today's demos, based on today's, I guess, situations and environments?
Absolutely. And that's one of
Okay.
the big things is that, s- we can pull up any kind of, nationalists or conversations that were being had in the 60s. And it's a shame that they apply to today, you know. And so it's really a lot of the Black Panthers, what they were standing for and how they were trying to galvanize and organize us in in a way where others so called it militancy. We call it survivalist guides. So yeah, it still applies.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. He was very, of course, he was a voice for the people. And do you think he was taking away the decadent veil that racism cast on America and the dividing lines that America uses with race and classism through his message?
And do I think he was taken away from it?
No, I'm saying, do you think he took, do you think he added to take away or alleviate those things that divided us as American,
Like, I
as an
like what C.
American people?
Chambers is saying. He was too powerful and charismatic for them. May his spirit reign supreme. Yeah, because one of the things that Fred Hampton brought to the fold is that, the most powerful and most dangerous things to white America was an educated Black man. you know, and FBI turns, oh, wait a minute, they gather in two, we're two and three together, they got to put a mic. And so, absolutely.
Yeah, I often go back to his I often go back to his language of how folks that were impoverished, no matter what demo you came from, if you were impoverished, you have commonalities there. You know what I mean? Not that I want to
Mhm.
be in common with everybody under the sun, but those who are impoverished have a lot more commonalities than they have differences. And a class struggle is just that, a class struggle. Let me go to the
Right.
we comment. Let me go to it. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, brother Mecca, for chiming in, and contributing your piece to the show. That's real dope. We talking about the chairman Fred Hampton and his message for all of us, and um, we're dealing with a time where they want to repeal a
Mhm.
lot of the FDR legislation, a lot of the Great Society legislation that led to a
Mhm.
lot of jobs that benefited not only people of color, but they benefited people of that aren't melanated, and
Mhm.
they're suffering just as much. All you gotta do is turn on TikTok or Instagram, and you'll find some white person complaining about losing a job. You know,
Right.
in some
Yeah.
capacity that the Fed subsidize because of whatever's going on with the Doge and Trump and all the rest of it.
Right. And the
Yeah,
presumptions of, who was being served by these, by federal funds, the presumption was there was people of color. But now you see, everyone and people who are not, as you say, melanated, crying on the streets and,
hmm
being put out their homes because the presumption is what made them take away some of those things. The presumption that, taking away DEI was going to just affect people of color. And now you see all these white students saying, oh, I can't get federal funding because you got to remember, they're impoverished as well. And so
right.
Fred Hammond, he has always sat there and said, all skin folk and kin folk. So when he said you got white pigs, you got black pigs, he wants you to know it's, for us to be aware that, there are some traitors in the midst, and then for everyone to know that whatever they do is not just going to affect us. And you see, it's like when you look at the stats, how many more people are being served by food stamps and things, and they said there's more Caucasians being served by it, and more, Caucasian families being served by it, and now they're crying that, oh, why is he doing this to us? Because you voted. So yeah, Fred Hampton is strong as his quotes and his teachings is as strong as it was then. It's so applicable today.
Dope, dope. I appreciate everybody watching. We're blasting off the 5 Facebook channels: YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Mobcrush, D Live, Trovo Nation. We're everywhere you want to be. We are the Real HD Show. We're here talking about the chairman, Fred Hampton, and whether his message that he had so many decades ago, however thwarted by spies and covert people and J. Edgar Hoover and everybody, does it still live on and apply to today? And the answer is a resounding yes. You let us know at home what you think about that. You let us know what your you know what your thoughts on the chairman and his message. But first, we want to give an update. First, we want to do an update. Update. All right. So the update is to the story that we did last week on Carmelo Anthony and the young man out of Texas. Well, Carmelo Anthony, by decree of a judge, was given enough to seek bail, and he's out now on his own recognizance. His family is, I guess, he's in the guardianship of his family under house arrest, got an ankle monitor, the whole piece. The only thing I'm glad they didn't do is make him do the perp walk. I'm glad that didn't happen. We didn't see too many of that Ronald McDonald stuff happening to know what's going on there. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys was I wanted to remind everybody, when the world and the whole nation is getting so polarized over this, Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf piece, I want to remind you of the type of area that Austin Metcalf was from. So this is he's from Frisco, Texas. And there was a golf course about a year or so ago that some of the bunkers and some of the bathrooms were littered with racial slurs because of this. During this time period, the golfers had to share the facilities with melanated folks. You know what I'm saying? And that's just an example of the sheriff of Frisco had to go to that particular golf course, make it a crime scene, and adjudicate it like someone like a homicide had happened, just for it to get the proper attention that it should have gotten. And these are the kind of microaggressions or idiosyncrasies that one encounters in Texas, playing that long education, let me be violent with you as a microaggression game. That's been going on forever and a day. I believe it's a class mobility denominator, because if you get turned off to the educational process, then you can't rise and attain and achieve like you want to as an adult in the United States. And if you've ever played any athletics countrywide, these sorts of things go on at these track meets where there's very little supervision, a lot of group think, a lot of crowd think, a lot of mob think, and these things kind of turn themselves on their head. They progress kind of on their own. Let's see what Brother Mega has to say. Learn behavior from irresponsible elders in the community. Exactly. And high school that Austin Metcalf and his brother went to had incidents of beating up paraplegics. They had incidents of
They were bullies.
trashing their school for shits and giggles, and they had incidents of cyberbullying, where they had to come out with a whole like platform PowerPoint that was on their website of their school to explain away why so many kids decided to opt out of going to regular class, and they were in the co-op program that they offered. and it was because of the cyberbullying. They didn't want any part of it. So a good portion of the kids, when they came back to school from COVID, decided to just do it at home. And they had to dedicate a lot of teachers and man resources to that because so many kids chose to do that because the bullying and the classism and the elitism and the racism was on deck every time, you thought about, that Frisco Memorial High School where Austin and his brother came from. So we wish him all the luck in the world. We wish him all the wealth in the world. We wish him all the success in the world with his defense. Um, yeah, privilege paranoia for sure, bro. Um, it's a situation where, you know, I believe, in my opinion, being a long time educator, that this is baked into the cake because of the way that they
Mm-hmm.
gerrymander and the way that they fix districts. I can remember a couple of years ago, in Mississippi, there was this high school called East, and the reason why I remember it is my son went to an East high school in Rochester, so of course it's gonna and he was graduating right about that time, and in that particular high school, the white high school, which was like on the border of where the two high schools were, was having fiscal issues or whatever their situation was, and they decided to um, kind of do a shared or an exchange program. And it just so happens that the white kids from the school with all the quote unquote money had the worst test scores,
Mm-hmm.
and then the East High School kids who came from lesser means had higher test scores. And then they wanted to unify those districts so that they could take benefit from East High School's higher test scores. How you like that? How you like that? That's them savage inequalities for you. You know what I'm saying? If our school district ain't doing good and yours is, we gonna take part of what you got going on that's good, so that we can keep the tax dollars flowing. We we can keep, we can keep all the American business of education flowing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a shame because outside, the kids at that East High School that were all melanated, all black, they probably had to have a super duper Joe Clark effort to get them test scores up, to get them where they need to be, to avoid all the trappings of their youth and of their environments, to get them test scores up, just to let these folks come through and play five heartbeats with their test scores. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Out of control. Have you ever experienced anything like that, Sister Aurora, where one in your education career where one situation was doing good and the other one wasn't, and then they try to, like, I guess, exploit that situation?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
Absolutely. You
okay,
know.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah. So I've been in that situation in terms of athletics. So when I was in high school, that very same thing happened where they wanted to cluster a certain amount of high schools so that New York City had a better look for
Mm-hmm.
their demos. Their demos had a better look athletically. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It didn't look like Staten Island and
Right.
certain parts of Brooklyn were lily white, which they were. You know what I'm saying? They're not Lily White. See, we gave Evander Childs and Dodge and all those people an opportunity to come to Clinton, which was the big high school. We gave them the opportunity too. See,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? So it's interesting. We're not giving them all the tax dollars. We don't prefer those folks out
We
there.
share.
You know? Yeah, man. The emboldened spirit behind their inept leader is casting America. Okay, yeah, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. See, that's why we need you on, man. You dropping it right now. We need your contribution, but we appreciate the comments as well. You know what I'm saying? So, we just want to talk about the chairman. We ain't talking about nobody but Fred Hampton. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's a warrior that will be never be forgotten for our folks. And
Never.
that was our elders and ancestors blueprint. Um, we would have loved to see him grow to really be an elder at this point, but we could always learn. from the lesson he's provided within the context of our liberation and independence. Now, so let's get to it. Let's do our AAT report. I was trying to hold out for my mans because I was told by my homeboy that he would be on tonight, the creator of the AAT report. I was told he was going to be on tonight. I gave him all the keys, and I gave him the keys to the car and said, "Come through." And I can't imagine what's keeping him. Wink, wink. But we'll take it however we can get it. Right now, we're about to go into a segment that you gave me, bro, on the email, on the DMs. So let's get into it. Our AAT report. Check it out. Yeah, so we are in the middle of an AAT report, healthy, wealthier, and wiser for a brand new you because we need cell power. That's right. We were robbed of that during a certain event a couple of years ago. We're not going to go through the whole rigmarole of explaining all of that. You were there. If you survived it, you understand. You like they say in the hood, you know what I mean? If you understood that, and you were there and you persevered. Peace to all those who took their trip back to the ancestral realm. But we're gonna get into something tonight so that too many of us don't have to take that trip and we could be vigilant about the water that we drink. Let's just check this out in our AAT report. Here we go.
New EPA federal standards for forever chemicals in drinking water that were due to begin in 2027.
As Jennifer McLogan reports, President Trump has withdrawn that proposal, sparking reaction from both sides of the aisle on Long Island.
This is really a tragic setback for water protection throughout America.
Adrian Esposito, Citizens Campaign for the Environment, reacting to President Trump's EPA directive to withdraw discharge limits of forever chemicals known as PFAS.
And this rule would have caused industry to participate in reducing PFAS. And instead, it sends a signal to industry, you can poison us as much as you want.
PFAS have been linked to serious health problems, including cancer, immune suppression, developmental harm. Chemicals that allow for nonstick pans, waterproof clothing, soaps and shampoos, now turning up in sewage sludge.
Humanity has to really have a consciousness, a raised consciousness about our waterways.
Many state regulators around the country have waited for the federal government to take the lead on the PFAS requirements so they can incorporate effective monitoring and treatment into their discharge permits that were due to begin in 2027. The D.C. nonprofit Environmental Working Group says without federal limits, those efforts remain stalled. Are Lee Zeldin's comments at his EPA nomination hearing now at odds with the president?
I was a member of the PFAS task force, also voted for the PFAS Action Act. EPA has an important responsibility to make sure that our obligations are implemented correctly is something that will be top priority of mine.
New York State Assemblywoman Mikhail Solage says her district now wants a public water forum.
It's sensitive. It's more important for us to engage the community and try to change this policy through the power of the people.
Water districts we contacted say if corporate regulations are halted, the financial burden will fall on the public. Each supplier will have to charge more to have PFAS filtered from our drinking water. On Long Island, Jennifer McLogan, CBS News, New York.
Biden.
All right, so that's where we are with this, and we got Brother Mozzie on. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We doing
Hey,
well,
Brother
man.
Mozzie.
We just had we're in the middle of an AAT moment, healthy, wealthy, and wiser for a brand new you. And we're talking about the EPA water advisory that's almost not, they're playing games with it based on what they promised it would be as of the Biden administration. And of course, now that, these dudes are running roughshod, they're wild cowboys on the situation. Now we're seeing, in government that is, now we're seeing all types of fallback from promises that will protect the public and protect the public interests. What's your thoughts, man? Because, we can only go for so many hours without clean water, or are we in trouble, Jack?
Well, we're not. I'm sorry. We're not too far from Flint, Michigan's crises, and
Right.
and so even in that instance, government still didn't really come and help them. It was the people that started helping them and building a new pipe system and stuff like that. So it's always curious how we allow the government allowed Flint, Michigan to go without water. And you're right, we can't go many hours without clean water. We need that, and people are donating to build new waterways in places that the federal government is supposed to be taking care of. The infrastructure is supposed to be taken care of. But again, it's that presumption that it only bothered people of color, so we ain't gonna run for it. And then yet you see all these, babies who are not of melanin skin having died in Flint, Michigan, and stuff because we all was in the same boat and government didn't realize.
If we don't have clean water, man, how all them white tea folks gonna get all that lice off of them, man? I saw this disgusting barbershop clip for brother Mecca. I saw this disgusting barbershop clip of this kid sitting in a barbershop chair and his head was full of lice.
Oh no.
And the barber had to cut around all that. And the only thing that would relax his scalp enough for the barber to get the lice off and do it was hot water. Clean water.
Yeah.
So that goes back to Sister Aurora. That goes back to what we talked about earlier about, when you don't heed a message, you hurt all people, not just some folks. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Brother Mozzie, man, talk to me, bro. Is RFK, man, is he starting off like this, bro?
Well,
he go put the kibosh on water already.
Listen, man.
Talk nice to me, man. Flirt with me a little bit first before you go for the death blow. Talk to us, bro.
Well, what happens with a lot of them families, especially like the Kennedys, it's all about what they can own. And there's always this ownership piece that these folks have. And then the other piece is for those who may follow what goes on, they tend to, once again, that psychopathic racial personality, man, they can't move beyond thinking about, well, it's not going to impact us. It's going to impact poor Black people. Or it's going to impact Black people in general. And then come to find out, only but a couple of us that live in the neighborhood, and it took down half the neighborhood. And most of the people were them. But this is also where we need to, we need to brush up on our survival skills. How do you purify water?
Correct.
There's many ways we can get water, especially if you live in a temperate zone. You get a lot of rain. You may just want to filter it out and be good to go. You got to start thinking about that stuff.
Yeah.
We've been told numerous times, our grandparents kept telling us, the day of reckoning is coming for these folks.
Interesting.
And we just got to be ready.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. So I just wanted to tap on that. And I'm glad you're here, man, because I could throw your particular you shared this with me on Instagram. And I wanted to get Instagram, like my little cousin likes to say. Check this out. This is another part of our AAT report. Here we go.
We're in the hospital right now. Dr. Herman, who's outside, and Dr. Jessica McCool have decided to put something in Terrence's IV to kill him. He's been fine and stable. The moment that we got ready to get him out of here and transfer him, they interfered. And as soon as we got the medical records to give over to the doctors, they came and had somebody come in here and put something in his line. Dr. Jessica McCool, Dr. Herman of this hospital, which is Carolina's Medical Center, Atrium here in North Carolina. Right now. I'm telling you what they're doing. You see him right now. His mama's working on him. They out there and they're saying that they gonna let him die. We asked them to come in and do something about it. They decided not to come in here and do nothing about it. And he still got a heartbeat.
My son has a heartbeat. They told me that they wanted my son's organs when they first pronounced him that he had brain trauma, and I told them that they keep cutting the air off now. They're cutting it off. They're cutting it off. They're controlling it from the outside.
Now they heard cut it back off because they heard you say it. We see what y'all doing out there. We see you. We see you. I promise you, you're going to jail. I promise you,
they're trying to kill my son.
Wow. Why do we still have to deal with this sort of thing in 2025 in them?
Listen, man.
That's so sad, man.
It was, oh man, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I can't imagine, man. You know, power to them, man. All power to them. That is a crazy scenario to be in. I got 2 boys. I couldn't imagine. And then the institution that you particularly, the institution that you think is made to protect and serve you is not doing any of that. And I don't know if y'all heard the father said they cut off the air from the hallway.
Yeah, he said no matter because he's breathing on his own, and this ain't make no news.
Right, that part. Well, it made news here,
Yeah,
man, because
and you know they could have made news all over the social medias.
But you know, we know these things occur.
Right.
The question is, what do we do about it?
Right.
This is going around, and I've known that the way social media work, a lot of people have seen this. So why isn't it, 1, made major news? 2, why haven't made independent news? And 3, if and when it does, what are we going to do about it? Because there's a lot of us who believe in this system and don't believe, you know, that these type of things can happen to us. So that's the question. You know,
I mean, look, man, this goes back to a necessity for organization, a necessity to build things that are not entertainment and sport related, things that we can fortify the community with. And you know, this also goes back, you know, to Vanguard, not so much the threat of violence, but the threat of reinforcement and support. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is why, you know, us having, you know, we work with our students to make sure that they ever want to be a doctor of some sort, that we, you know, we do what we can to help them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But we ain't gonna help you if all you're doing is chasing the big money at a major research institution.
Right.
Now we may send you there on sabbatical or send you there to get some training, you know, for 6 months to a year or whatever it may be, you know, but we got to have a replacement in the meantime, you know, because you're still going to always have to go back to school, everything else. These doctors are making money from a couple different areas. The research, they're making money from, you know, the hospitals that they're affiliated with, and the insurance companies and the pill companies, you know, the pharmaceuticals. And the reality is, if we're doing good stuff, these folks always want to be involved. So they're going to give us the money. And that's the part that I think a lot of us don't understand. They can be as biased as they want to be. But the reality is, if we're doing good work, we ain't got nothing to worry about. You know, if we're curing stuff that they can't cure, if we're solving problems that they can't solve, they'll come knocking at the door. 1, to either buy us out, take us over. If we can't do any of those, they'll partner with us. And we just have to be prepared, which, you know, we're not. You know, they had the big April 5th where they went out there and was marching in the streets. Okay, so what? We didn't go march. But what else did we do on that day? What we should have said, well, we're going to let y'all go march. Meanwhile, we're going to get on these Zoom calls around the country and we're going to start trying to organize again for the umpteen thousand time. But maybe this time it'll stick.
Right. No, I absolutely. I mean, Sister Aurora or Brother Mega, y'all got anything on this?
No, and brother's right. You gotta, that's why we need to support those that want to become doctors and serve the community in a positive manner. I mean, and it's not, oh, I'm becoming a surgeon to make mega dollars, and so I don't care how I cut, who I cut. That kind of attitude. You can't have that. I mean, it's so good. I know sisters and brothers in the Atlanta area, and I'm just do a shout out to Holly Hubbard, who she's a young African American female, and she has been, raising her son on her own, and she became a doctor to help the community. And she's like, the insurance ain't paying her, she's there to make sure that everyone gets quality health care. And that's her notion, and that's what she stands on. And so we appreciate sisters like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy, man. This stuff is, you know, you would hope that you would have more, I guess. You've turned the corner with things like this as a nation. But the more you think that things are better or are more egalitarian, the more you see that, you give people enough latitude and they'll be like, nah, I'm good. I don't wanna serve you. You know what I mean? Um, do you think this is because America has never really dealt with their original sin from a social perspective and like a real way? That these sorts of things would still persist during this day and age?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. It wasn't even about reckoning with it. It's still part of the fabric of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still going to get these type of things that take place. And then you'll get the false sense of you're bigger than what you are, and then you'll get these people like the current MAGA folks who are out here China shutting us down in every way possible. And we saw sitting there looking, and they, not us, but them, still sitting there can't figure it out because they want to, when you live like that for so long, in order to keep the lid on it, especially in this day and age with technology, everything else, you ban the books, you go after things that that's helping folks, things of that nature. And so you find yourself, or they find themselves, like the ostrich sticking his head in the hole. Can't hide for the things that are out there. They're out there for a reason because they're taking place. And you can only hide in your little hole for so long.
Yeah, man. And I mean, we've heard it all throughout the decades about, whether or not, whether we're wanted here or welcomed here or whatever the, fascination with that subject is. So this sister, right? She got on with Chat GPT and she had a particular moment where she asked Chat GPT, similar to our episode where we did interview with an information vampire. You guys go check that one out. That was a good show. Um, and she asked Chat GPT, what would America do if black people all of a sudden, all of us, decided to become expats? What would happen to the country? So I'm gonna load that up real quick, the response, and fast forward it a little bit to her retort, so we could kind of see what's really shaking with it.
so many of y'all on here talking about go back to Africa, you should go, blah, blah, blah. I decided to ask ChatGPT, Chat, what would happen if all Black Americans left the U.S. and returned to Africa? And one thing ChatGPT do not do is lie, baby. So this is what ChatGPT said. This is food for thought for everybody who's saying go back to Africa. So first, Black Americans make up 14% of the U.S. population and contribute significantly to healthcare, education, sports, entertainment, government. And a sudden departure would create significant labor shortages. That's one. 2, Black Americans contribute over $1.7 trillion annually to the U.S. economy. A departure like that would create a sudden loss of economic power. 3, Black-owned businesses, which employ millions of Americans, would shut down or relocate, shifting the wealth to whatever country all of us went to. Number 4. Now this one gonna really piss you off. This one gonna piss you off. Loss of cultural influence. Black Americans, and I quote, Black Americans have shaped U.S. culture through jazz, hip-hop, and blues, fashion, language, and sports. Their departure would significantly alter America's cultural identity. Here's where it gets good again. A decline in innovation. Blacks foster creativity and innovation. The loss of racial diversity could slow technological advances. See, y'all ancestors ain't tell y'all how sick y'all.
All right, so we're back. I put that on for a reason because I thought it was interesting with all of the, idiosyncrasies and I guess savage inequalities that exist. We just read a story about one. Now we talk about what's interesting about the AI that they invent and how actually truthful it is to the condition of today. And why do y'all think Chat GPT has so much blatant information to talk about when it comes to Black folks? That's not the first time I've heard that. And I don't know if y'all remember those images that Chat GPT was putting out a couple months back with all the historical figures being Black people. Jesus and those people were all Black people. So it's interesting how, if you dig into the annals of, I guess, I'm not saying that, social media and AI isn't inherently biased, because it is. But every once in a while, a clock is right twice. Why do y'all think that we're getting so much, integral information on that end? I'm finding stories like this all the time. Sister Aurora, what do you think?
Well, again, because it takes, Chat GPT takes as much information as it's given, so you can tell that we're being talked about all the time, and
Rent
the
free.
fact that we're essential to the livelihood of the other Americans. So it's not odd that, again, like she said, Chat GPT doesn't lie, and but it takes in all conversations that's being had. So how they used to say, "Oh, my ear is tingling" or something like that. Somebody talking about me. Okay, well, we always getting talked about, because again, the creation and the inventions and the foundations that have been poured just to have America be what America is came from many African Americans or people of color.
Yeah, man. So I just thought that was an interesting video. For and I didn't put the music on, but that was part of our, lit city report, the wild, the wacky, the wonderful things that make our world go round, and that was one of them. But in an effort to keep things moving and keep things popping on the show, we're gonna get right into our power to the people news. So, power to the people news. Wait, what happened? This just happened. So everybody's crying tariff. Everybody's crying what's going to happen as a result of Trump and all these tariffs. And first of all, I wanted to get y'all opinion on, Trump going crazy with all these tariffs and all his threats, and then he had a 90-day pause, and now he's not, and he's on and he's off. What are we experiencing here from the 20% of our melanated population that put this man in office? What's the experience here going on with this man?
Well, one is that the man is crazy. Well, I don't think he's crazy per se. He's not as bright as many people seem to paint him to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that well read.
Right.
He knew one part. He only had one kind of like life specialty, and that was real estate and development. But even then, as we know, if you live in the tri-state area, he never paid anybody. Most people didn't get paid off their jobs. That's why he's down in Miami and Del Largo, or Mar-a-Lago, or whatever it's called.
Talk about it.
And so, we have a revisionist history when it comes to Donald Trump. A lot of claims that he make has never turned out to be what they are. Practically every business that he's been involved in failed. All his casinos are gone, except for the one in Vegas. And right now, Trump is more a licensing thing in it than anything else, a brand. We had Trump Airlines. You had him at the USFL. You had him with, he was selling ties, bacon, shirt. He was doing it all. That's who Steve Harvey tried to be like, Let me put my name on everything.
Right.
And everything pretty much has failed. He built it with a lot of debt, but when you're in the development world, you take on a lot of debt. And, he's just not a bright dude, man. And then here's what's happening too is he's taking his cues from his MAGA group, and they're not that bright, and they're very biased. So they don't seem to understand what is taking place. You can't get mad at a place like China. Like the one sister said, you gave it to us. You guys did not want to do this work. You the ones closed down your factories and gave it to us. So you can't sit there and act like, no, they're playing. They're not playing fair. Like, come on, man. And now you done woke up and realized, oh, wait a minute. If I hit them with tariffs, we're screwed. And now they're one of our biggest trading partners. So how are you going to try and screw your trading partner over?
Did you hear? Did either one of you catch the leader of Singapore and his address to people, to his country?
Oh yeah,
As a
Singapore.
result of the Donald trade, the trade tariffs and all of it. What did y'all think of his direct message?
I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Well, it was about maybe a week and a half ago when it was looming that Donald Trump was going to make all of these tariff changes, and it was I guess in that world you can get pretty much confirmation what's going to happen, and then of course that sets off worldwide speculation, similar to what happened with Costa Rica and Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that when, and then of course the stock market had a temporary recession. I don't know if anybody even
Had a
peeped it.
serious meltdown.
Yeah, had a serious meltdown for about maybe 3 days because of that. And then as soon as he decided to put a 90-day pause on it, It all of a sudden jumps back up. What do y'all
Yeah.
think? What do y'all think, man?
Well, America's market driven.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the market honestly don't have much to do with the general economy. That's the one thing
Yes.
that people don't know and understand. The two don't have one to do, don't really have anything to do with each other. But in general, it shows you how the investors felt because they knew the overall effect that it would have on the businesses that are trading back and forth. And, they realized like, oh, wait a minute, bro, you have to slow down on this. Just got to slow it down, figure out what's going to go on. And now they're starting to realize that we are not in the power position that we thought we were in.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is if you got a bright set of people around you, like you alluded to, then they will put you on about the dangers of what you're trying to do based on past precedent. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So
And what he has around him are people who
I had to deal with my kids and my students and educate them on the Smoot-Hawley Act, which was a Herbert Hoover situation back in the 20s and the early 30s. And if that was a tariff driven event, and it sent the world into a speculative spiral. And a lot of people even speculate that was the cause of World War II, because of course you had all of those nations in Europe healing from from World War One that happened about 10 years before. And then when America imposed the Smoot-Hawley Act, all it did was create speculation and trade war amongst everybody from a Europe that was already decimated from the First World War. And now, you hit them with that, and boom, all the trade partners start bickering and beefing with one another. And that's basically what the leader of Singapore said in his message. He was just like, yo, just get ready for periods of economic, deflation, get ready for periods of not deflation, inflation, get ready for periods of civil unrest, get ready for trade wars, get ready for all of this. And he was very direct and very so if and I'm imagining there's no stupid people in Washington DC. What do you think is the like I said, imagining is the operative word. Why do you think that these things are still being carried out if they know the Smoot-Hawley Act way back didn't work? Tariffs didn't work. As a matter of fact, that's why they installed an income tax, because the Smoot-Hawley Act didn't work. It was so dangerous to world progress and free trade that they just decided to, put an income tax on the people instead of create this worldwide catastrophe. What's your thoughts on that? And why are we repeating that?
We're repeating it because people that are being voted into office don't have historical knowledge. And some of them just aren't that bright. They were just people that were good at, saying a few slogans and echoing some talking points that the people are concerned about. And they were able to, kind of flip it up a little bit, mix it up so they sound a little bit more eloquent and make it sound like they really know what they're talking about. But overall, they don't know what the average person don't know. That's in Congress.
Yes, exactly right.
You would not be voting for something because you would understand your interconnectedness amongst all the countries that you're crapping on.
Right. Right.
And then to make it so bad, you look even worse because now you are talking about you putting tariffs on islands that don't even have populations. Come on, man. We sound like big time. We're being exposed for the idiots that we are in America.
Is there an idiocy at play, or is there another side of the game at play? And the reason why I say that is because over the last couple of weeks, I've been bringing up this technocracy piece in the show. And you know, I labeled the show tonight, Dark Enlightenment. I should have. I wanted to put accelerationism in there, but we're going to get a little deeper into Dark Enlightenment. Either one of you familiar with Dark Enlightenment? I know you sent me a piece on that, brother Mozzie. What's your take on Dark Enlightenment and the Trumpian effort to move in that direction? I think we might have lost brother Mozzie for a minute, but let's watch this. Let's watch this clip right now on hostile takeover. I wanna show y'all that. This is very interesting. And I'm not saying this is factual, but it's very interesting and it's something definitely that we should consider. Real HD show, check it out.
About puppet masters that are controlling the puppet. Puppet masters that are controlling the puppet. Let me begin by sharing this information today. There is a person you have never heard of who may be one of the most influential thinkers in the right-wing and white nationalist space in this country. His name is Curtis Yarvin. Let me say it again, Curtis Yarvin. He founded the anti-egalitarian and the anti-democratic movement known as the Dark Enlightenment or neo-reactionary movement. This movement believes democracy is a failed experiment and must be replaced by a monarchy or a dictatorship. The way to reach this goal is through Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley venture capitalists who will use their money to sway public opinion and miseducate the masses through social media and collecting our data. One of Curtis Yarvin's disciples is a person by the name of Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, I'm not sure the pronunciation, is a South African, just like, or an Afrikaner, just like Elon Musk, who founded PayPal. Peter Thiel funded the political rise, has publicly stated that Curtis Yarvin is his intellectual mentor. Now, Curtis Yarvin says in order to destroy democracy, they have a program called RAGE, R-A-G-E, RAGE. And this program means retire all government employee. RAGE, Project 25, RAGE, and now Doge is doing the work of Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin believes some races are fit for servitude. Blacks have a natural lower IQ, and civil rights was applied to a population of recent hunter-gatherer ancestry, and no great moral fiber. As a result, civil rights in America created absolute garbage. The architect of Trump's presidency, Steve Bannon, is an admirer of his work, and a collection of Silicon Valley billionaire bros adhere to his philosophy. How do we push back? Number one, we've got to be educated about what is happening. Number two, we have to be deliberate with our dollars. There's no reason we should be supporting any business that plays in our face. Support local, support black businesses. Number three, support black institutions that believe in liberation. Whether it is your church, HBCU, whether it is an activist organization, unions, independent press, fraternities, sororities, all of these organizations we have to support and we have to raise our voice. And finally, you've got to be the most engaged voter, politically astute, not miseducated, but educated.
All right. So we're back. Real HD Show. That was a clip from that particular reverend. I believe you gave me that clip, bro, on Instagram or something like that. And I was just curious. What do you make of that clip, Sister Aurora? And what type of feeling of vigilance does that give you?
Well, I don't know, because the consumers are not educated, and so that's why we fall short all the time. So it's just that, having been an entrepreneur and having had 2 stores open and things like that, if the consumer is not educated to what you have or what the country is having right now, well, it's not affecting them. They're not. There's no real outcry except for from those of us who watch CNN and C-SPAN and whatever else is involving in the economy. But there's no real outcry right now. Donald Trump's tariffs and everything. I mean, you need to secure your own if that's right now, because they don't see the connect. There's such a disconnect when we talk about economy in all communities. And that's why the election goes the way it goes. That's why there's no connect. Walmart will still get customers. So, that's what I'm thinking. It's not enough people who they're apathetic. Yeah, there's not enough people who actually are. What's that commercial? Educated consumers. But there used to be a commercial that says, what we like is an educated consumer. Yeah. If it was, you would see more outrage, or you would see more conversations in regards to the tariff move, to what it was, the World Trade Organization that said, he's trying to collapse the economy, and things like that. I'm telling you, the Handmaid's Tale that I always talk about, that kind of shows what's happening there. They put it back on Hulu or Prime Video, one of those shows. And, I just recommend people watch it, because that was a step towards what's happening right now.
Yeah. So do you think that in Dark Enlightenment piece about a lot of those technocrats like Peter Yarvin and Peter Thiel and a lot of the people at Vanguard and BlackRock and all of those people who fall under the name technocrat, do you think that something like this is plausible, where they want to take away democracy, install AI, because AI is more practical and smarter than your average everyday human being, and would lead to better governmental outcomes? Or is this just a power move by those who trying to move the goalposts into a total tech run society? Anybody could jump in and talk about that, because like you said before, if Donald Trump knows that it was only the World War II that actually got us out of that Smoot-Hawley issue with the tariffs and how it crashed the world economy, then why would he be willing to do it again if he's not looking to have another world war or exacerbate the conflicts that are going on overseas?
Why he's doing it again is because you're assuming that he is an intelligent being, but he's not. So, and AI, remember, it was his attorney that wrote his whole closing case using AI,
Right.
So he feels, oh, this way I can sound smart, but again, there's a intelligent quotient that does not reach a 10, you know. And so, and the smartest thing he does is, they always say put smarter people around you. And so I have to say, he's putting smarter people around him to do some of the most craziest things with Americans' government. It's like they're literally playing a board game. Oh, if we move this and let's see, because I think we can do this. Especially with the educational department. So, you know, we have to become more educated persons about certain things. And I'm saying right now, people should start protecting and counting their currency, because they're going to invalidate that. So that won't work for you. And people who are not, like, I'm not crypto smart or anything. I'm not trying to put nothing in something that I don't know much about, and there's a side that's leaning towards that. But Mike, why would I do that when I don't know much about it? you know. Um, so you have to be educated to know what's happening, and that's why there's no real outcry, because people used to watch the news. People don't watch the news now because they're streaming channels. They're not engaged in what's happening. They're not picking up newspapers. Your information is coming from TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X, and whatever else is out there. Those
Yeah,
little quick sound bites of information, and they
absolutely.
take that and they don't grow it.
Yeah, so dark enlightenment is a philosophy that's not new. It's as old
Correct.
as the Enlightenment era. It's
Hmm.
just now they're adding the techno spin on it, the fourth turning,
Right.
they're adding the fourth industrial revolution spin to it, and assuming an already used playbook that is about a lot of, like, I guess, top down, authoritarianism, but they want to make it like an oligarch situation that's led by technology. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
if you look, ever since the year 2000, when all of those tech folks had got their tech boom, I don't know if everybody remembered that, but I was there for that when the dot-com boom happened and all these millionaires and billionaires came out of the electronic digital space. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And now that we're internet dependent, right? We're social media dependent. They want to move everybody's target or everybody's consciousness, and have everybody kind of worship a digital technology led space rather than a human led space. And is there a world where technology overrides democracy? So, Brother Mozzie, I don't know if you're still on or if you're away, but if you can hear me, tap in on this one. We talk so many times on the show about uh, correcting government or making government more fair for melanated people. And now here
Hmm.
comes this movement, this technocracy movement, this dark enlightenment movement, this accelerationism movement that's doing it in ways that we didn't want to apply ourselves to. What say you on this? And is there a world where we follow this? Or is there a world where we fight, fight, fight like crazy to install
Well,
our
there
own
it is.
version of what this means?
Right. Well, when I had my shop open, and conversations around dark and light, and it started around the 2000s, and it was one of the moves that kind of made us decide to, one, we're making more money for the landlord that doesn't look like us, and I'm saying buy black, for us, by us, but the money is going to a different landlord. So around that time, it was our choice to open up a branch online, and with what our services were, especially for the Black Panhellenic, all the Greek and sororities and other things. We had to find a niche on who we can serve and who was going to move with us. And strangely enough, our first attempt at online services was great. It kind of blew up, and we kind of, then people are talking about, how democracy was flawed. Well, yeah, it's flawed. And, but the fixings aren't coming in because the concepts of, dark enlightenment, when someone says, oh, it's a movement, is it liberalism? Is it this? Is it progressive? Is it that? Again, you need a buy-in, and I just don't think, not to preclude our folks, but they're not interested. You know,
Mm.
it's like, you know, when we have shows such as this, we're preaching to the choir. You know, people don't understand when we try to bring
So
in, you know, voices to so we can hear and they can hear or learn and we can learn from them. It's not on the time. It's not like it was when I was growing up, where, like I said, where we would go to hear these things. We would go to, you know, we had think tanks in the basement of Here Comes the Dawn, all the religions, all businesses,
right.
you know, just on how we can grow as one in this one little village called Hempstead, you know. So
So you
it
think
was
that's what's missing more of the melanated think tanks that were more grassroots oriented?
absolutely, absolutely, because you know when I came to him, so we started growing together. You know, I mean, people are saying, yeah, when you came into Here Comes the Dawn, if I didn't have it, I told you to go down to Arts, you know, Treasures. You know, I would call, you know, Sister Braisley and say, hey, I don't have this, and I got somebody here. Do you got it? And you know, they became kind of like surprised, but I'm like, no, that's how you have to do it. You
Right.
know, because they're gonna come
Right.
to you, they're gonna come to me. But if they come to me and I don't have it, let me take them to you and you might have it, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
that is missing, you know, that I mean, that it was great in the beginnings of the 2000s where people were talking about that because we did become enlightened. You know,
Mm.
you know, I knew what stores was in Jamaica Avenue. They knew where I was, you know, we knew each other and everyone, you know, it was a really big time of enlightenment at that time. So when you fit that in with democracy and what was happening at that time, you know, there maybe streaming has taken a lot away and the cell phone has taken a lot away, but we were more engaged with each other. Even if we had a cell phone, you know, we weren't engaged with the cell phone. We were engaged with each other and we kind of learned from each other to grow together. Yes, because we also say, you know, if we don't grow together, okay, one by one, our stores are just going to be closed, you know.
Mm.
And we had a really strong contingent of folks from 1995 to 2000, you know. So yeah, that's my piece.
Yeah, man. So, what's interesting about this whole, dark enlightenment piece is it's really a return to, white supremacy, but with like a technology face on it. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember, what's the guy's name? The Cambridge Institute that Trump got money from. These are the same people that wanted to take away women's right to vote. I know we heard about
Mm-hmm.
that a couple of months back. This is all they want it to all happen through a means for technology. So, in other
Right.
words, we present it's a Hegelian dialectic. So, in other words, I'm going to present the problem to you and then give you the technology solution for it. You know what I mean? But it's going to be in a way that benefits me and what I want out of the you know free enterprise market and
Right. You know, because they want us to return to the
hegemony,
older
right?
ways, you know.
We're going to retain power. We're going to do this our way. I mean, similar
Mm-hmm.
to how they're doing with the digital coin. There was no
Right.
reason, there was no pressing reason. Let them tell it will be, but there was no pressing reason to go away from paper and coin money. But they're
Mm-hmm.
deciding to do that, and they want to present all these obvious reasons based on crappy internet and social media outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So one of the things I found interesting was the history of dark enlightenment, and that goes all the way back to like the enlightenment thinkers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And these people were praised. I have to teach my kids to pass the hypocrisy and the hypocrisy of it all, as I have to teach a bunch of kids to pass a course like this when the gentlemen that were, or the men that were in this enlightenment era, were nothing but a bunch of racists and savages who
Mm-hmm.
learned from the Moors, twisted it around to serve their own means, and then repackaged it as some flowering of Europe when really it was, the antecedents of what we know today's racisms to be. You know what I mean? They were the ones, those thinkers were the ones to inject all those racial notions and a racial cosmology, if you will, on the planet, and have that reign over the last 1,000 years. When really the 1,000 years prior to that, the world didn't even really deal with itself like that. The world dealt with
Right.
itself in very different means. So you go from Emmanuel, you go to Kant, you go to Nietzsche, you go to all the Enlightenment thinkers, Montesquieu, and all of them have some sort of racial backdrop to their thinking. Now, check this out, and I don't know if Brother Mozzie's still listening or not, but please tap in if you do. Do you think that this particular, so of course they thought they found the way, right? Sister Aurora, they thought, well, we're not thinking we're going to fall off the earth anymore. We know that there's a heliosphere, and we are, we have gravity based on the sun, right? And now we know it all, and we're going to forge this crusade or this campaign to procure resources all over the planet based on what we quote unquote already know and what we've acquired over the last couple of centuries to and then have it metastasize into what we know now as current politics. And how does it feel that the Enlightenment thinkers, or the so-called ones that are supposed to be the wisest of the wise, are the ones that had invented this diabolical racial and classist scheme in order to avoid poverty? I can find a way where I don't have to actually produce anything with my hands, as long as I have the scheme to create a system for it. I can reap the benefits of not putting in any of the manual labor, and then keep other populations down based on their ethnocentric or racial identity and racial makeup. And the people that they praise, and I mean, I guess it's not really new, because George Washington was a racist, Abraham Lincoln was one, Franklin. I mean, you go down the list, they all wearing the I hate N badge on a sleeve. They all got it. They all got the racial card right out their wallet. You open the wallet and there it is. I'm a card carrying member. But now they want to make these intellectual people out in Europe, that went through the scholarments of it all. I know I'm saying a lot. They want these people. They want to put these people on a pedestal as these worldwide philosophers that have to be like, when my daughter went to school, she had to buy a book on Kant that cost like $200. And I'm like, we're still studying this racist here. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's 2025 and we still studying Montesquieu and Adam Weishaupt, and you know what I'm saying? Adam Smith, all these people that were blatant racists, but we're still studying them under the guise that they were so enlightened. You know what I'm saying? So do you think the dark part of that was the fact that they were as contemptuous as they were? Or do you think they was just these smarty arty people that couldn't help but divide and conquer people?
I mean, because that's the game. They divide and conquer, folks. I mean, if Musk isn't like Curtis Yarvin, I don't know who is. In
Yeah.
terms of being
Yeah,
that.
he's a technocrat for sure.
Yes, exactly. And so, again, the population of those who understand what's happening, and especially in our communities, isn't a lot. So, where you want to rise up, or where you think people would rise up and say, wait a minute, whoa, 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 whoa. If you take away this, you take away all of this, but that's not what's happening. And again, that comes with, we do need to bring back the think tanks. I mean, a show like the Real HD Show is a think tank that people should come and have conversations about these things, because they're happening right, not in no dark corner anywhere. They're able to make these changes right in your face,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and
and
it's not getting the attention. Do you think it's so much of the voluntary way that technology is presented to people, and you think that's the reason why they're so hands off to the changes? Like, you go to a bank and the bank says, "Well, if you open this account, we'll give you $250." But you don't
right,
know you're opening up a digital wallet that makes
exactly,
you
because
bound to what that particular company tells you to do with your money
right, and how you can spend it.
digitally.
I
Right,
mean,
right.
that's the warning too for people who are getting these tax returns. Don't get that credit card. Okay, 'cause,
Facts. They want
you
you to do
spend,
that.
you gotta pay a dollar
Mm-hmm.
of your same
Uh-huh.
money to spend your money. And so I
Uh-huh.
noticed that they're pushing that. My daughter had her taxes, and it's like I said, don't get that credit card. You get your
Yeah.
cash.
Right.
You decide how you're gonna spend it. And so
Exactly.
yeah, I mean,
Diversify that money up and put it in
yes,
different places and tuck it under the mattress for a rainy day, all that
that's
good
right.
stuff.
Do something, but you
Yeah.
keep your cash. I always tell
Uh-huh.
the kids, I said, "Why are you going
Uh-huh.
to check cash and you gonna pay for your own money?" Like I'm gonna check
Ooh.
cash in place. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. How
So
about
or
that? How
Mhm.
about that in our lifetime, sis, where we saw a revolution of finance? I wish Brother Mozzie was still on right now.
Mhm.
Peace to you, brother. Hope everything is good. But um, you want to having to pay $5 to get you $20 of your own money.
Of your own money. I
Of
be
your
telling
own
students, I
money
said,
that
"Why
you
you
put in that
check cash
sweat
in
equity
place?"
for, you gotta pay $20 you gotta pay $5, 250 to
Yep,
the ATM, 250 to your bank just to get out of 20, just to
just to
make
get
the
your
purchase.
money. Thank
Man,
you.
you feeling used like a mug. You like, yo, you
Dude,
know?
yeah.
And
So
you're not hearing
and that's
about
the kind
none
of
of
things
this
that they don't
and none of this
understand.
takes place on a congressional debate. None of this takes
Right.
place in a presidential debate. None of this takes
Mhm.
place when it's time to elect none of these people. But yet we still have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And of
Mhm.
course, people are romanced into these relationships based on whatever, benefits they can get out of it.
Right.
So make sure you guys check out in the Neoscape, the Enlightenment's Dark Side. That's a great article. It talks about all of the
Mm.
Enlightenment errors, thinkers, and philosophers, and what they thought about racist and classist intentions. It's
Mhm.
almost like they wanted to ignore it while participating in it. I'm in it and not of it. I'm just using this for an end. Well, we know that's nonsense. We know they were very violent. We know they were very denigrating. We know we know they casted a lot on generations of people over hundreds and thousands, 1,000 years at this point. So the last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is something called accelerationism, and that's the whole thing we talked about with Donald Trump and the plot to hurry up and crash the government. And to me, the reason why a lot of his movements don't make sense is because I believe that's what he's here to do. I believe he's here to digitally and policy wise crash the nation, leaving us in a despair for a new system of doing, a new system of being, a new system of governance. And accelerationism is just the warp speed, how fast we get there with technology. You know what I mean? So I was gonna play a big clip of that. We're kind of coming toward the end of the show. I don't want to go too far with that, but please
Mhm.
check Dark Enlightenment and Accelerationism out, and then you'll understand a little bit more, or at least have a glimpse into what could perhaps be the end game with all of this. And I really do believe it's a tech takeover. I really do believe they're trying to install. This is why Sister Aurora Trump said, like, yo, we may not have to vote ever again. You remember his quote on that?
Mhm.
So this is kind of some of the things that we're talking about. So if you're ruled by technocracy, then of course your vote wouldn't count as much as it would if AI is ruling your government.
Mhm.
And then you see all these things with AI in various forms and ebbs and flows being jettisoned into the culture without regulation, without pause, without nobody saying, yo, you know what I mean? Nobody saying,
Mhm.
hey, you know what I'm saying? Nobody's saying,
Yep.
whoa, slow down. You know what I'm saying? It's just in your face. Everybody's using it. It's pegged as this, uh, magnanimous way of moving into the future. And I'm not gonna say there aren't good ways of doing it. There's good ways of using AI, but what fails in comparison is what's being done and where it's leading the nation in backdoor deals. I had a conversation with my wife, and I was telling her that if we're not careful, man, we're gonna find ourselves in a real life Hunger Games situation
Mm-hmm.
where the elitists control all the digital and tech stuff, and you in your little hut with your little beigeness on. You know what I'm saying? Looking like Katniss with your beige, with your ripped up, tattered beige,
Mm-hmm.
itching for a scratch. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different from what we have now, which is a lot more autonomy. But we're wasting it. So not exactly in depth like I thought I wanted to get into it, but it serves the purpose. Please be vigilant. Please take everything that the Real HD show dropped on you today. Please go back, vet it yourself, research it yourself. Come back on the show. Let us know what you think about it. Put it in the comments. Come backstage with us. Let's have a higher discussion.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else on this? Because I'm about to close out, sis. You got anything last
No,
words?
no,
Okay.
but people have to get back to, you know, educating yourself,
Yes.
questioning
Yes.
authority, educating yourself. Don't just take it from somebody's mouth or post that this is what it is. We have to get back to think tanks. We have to get back to thinking for ourselves.
Right. Exactly. She said, Sister Aurora said it best. And with that, we're going to take it out of here. We want you guys to like, share, and subscribe, comment. Matter of fact, timestamp whatever you like about the episode. I like the questions from last Monday's episode. Last Wednesday's episode. That was really great. Turn your notifications so every time we have a Real HD show, YouTube can tap in and have a higher discussion with us. So for myself, Sister Aurora, Brother Mozzie, everybody, Brother Mega, everybody that participates with the Real HD show, I want to say peace. Y'all walk with power. Y'all stay vigilant, man. Y'all stay aware and share that with each other. I'll see y'all on Monday. Peace, y'all.
See you Monday. Peace.